Good morning, Besta. How are you? Are you well rested from your little vacay, your crafty vacay? It was so good to have you at retreat. Okay, so just trying to find myself here. So good morning, everyone who's jumping on. Hi, Linda. Okay, so I found myself. Okay, great. So we'll wait a few minutes to see if anybody else is going to join us this morning. So last week I was not live because I had hosted an in-person crafting retreat. It was Sunday through Thursday, and we had 25 participants. 10 states were represented. It was an awesome 4 days of getting back together with old friends and meeting some new ones. This retreat that I hold, it's the second one that I have held, and it's just, if there's any openings next year, I will open it up, but it sounds like everybody's coming back again, and the inn only sleeps so many, so it'll be exciting. We did so many different things. This was not a Stampin' Up event. This was crafting. So we had quilters. We did a bead bracelet making class. It was just a lot of different things. We had a girl teaching 2 others how to crochet. So it was just a chance to go someplace, bring your projects, get some work done, but we kept them very busy. We played games, we had demos. It was a lot of fun. The pool was still open, so the girls got to go swimming, and it was just like kind of like nonstop. So if you were there and you're still tired, I get it, because I am still tired too. So let me just look at who's hopping on. So Peggy and Sheila and Jasmine and Claudia, Diane. Oh my goodness. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Hi, Sharon. Today we're going to, I'm going to show you a quilt block that actually has 2 possibilities. So it's like a 2-for-1. You can stop where we see one design, or you can keep going with the design that was intended for me to show you. So if I say any more, I might give it away. So I'm not going to. I am gonna flip the camera around. Before I do that, I hope everyone had a chance to take advantage of the free shipping that Stampin' Up! Had offered yesterday. There are some things, the paper that I'm working with today is not available right now. There was quite a few items that I'm sure, you know, it wasn't just because it was free shipping. They're very popular, but the free shipping offer got a lot of orders in, and unfortunately there are some things that are unavailable until October, but still you can use any other papers that you have. I've chosen some fall colors, so choose some fall colors. It doesn't have to be the Splendid Autumn Designer Series paper, which I'm using today. So as I am flipping the camera around, I would love it if you would say hello to each other. Maybe give this a share, see if anybody else would like to jump on and see what we do on our Thursday morning mystery quilt blocks. So I'm gonna flip the camera, greet each other, say good morning, and then we're gonna get started. Okay, just got to move some things around. And I know that I'm going to probably have to zoom in. Okay, don't fall over on me. Okay, let me just There, got to balance that out. And then, okay, I got to flip it again. Right, yeah, because that's not on the right side. And let's just, there we go. See if I can zoom, maybe a little. There, because you don't want to see my whole desk. And I have got to tell you, this has never been so unorganized before. It's driving me crazy, but I haven't had the time to, waiting for live signal. Hold on. What happened here? Okay, okay, I think we're back. Did anybody else have kind of like a glitch there? I don't know what that was. Oh, it's going to be a thing. Okay, looks like we're back. Looks kind of blurry too, doesn't it? I wonder what's going on. That looks horrific. Are you guys seeing a lot of distortion on your end? Okay, now it just came into view really clear. Okay, let's keep going before this happens again. So, in the prep directions that I gave yesterday, I am using the Sketched Plaid, the large stamp, and I stamped off once because I wanted a lot of hit or miss. I wanted kind of a worn pattern. So that's why I brought this in, because the very first card I did, my my prototype, I actually used a 4x5 1/4 piece of cardstock, and I embossed it, and I loved it. But then I was playing around with some other ideas, and I really fell in love with this. So if you have an all-over stamp that you would like to use just to give it some texture, that'll be great. If you don't have the Sketched Plaid, or in the prep I had mentioned, you could emboss this piece for texture also. The Splendid Autumn Designer Series paper is what I am using. And my inspiration for my colors was this piece right here. We're going to use almost the whole 6x6 in our project. And, oh, did I stall again? Hi, Donna, how are you? You're not too late because we're just getting going here. Hi, Becky and Janice. Okay, so I'm just going to refresh my screen here. It could be just me, but now it looks like we're back. Except now I can't see comments. I ruined it. Oh. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's move on before this really gets aggravating today. So this is my inspiration piece. I've got my, let's go through what I had you prepare. I've got my card base. It's 5.5 by 8.5. We're going to, I've scored it at 4 1/4, but we're going to add a score line here in a moment. So we've got that. And then I've got this 4 by 5 1/4 inch textured background piece, which I stamped. We've got a 2 inch by 5 1/4 inch piece of basic white. This is going to give you an area to stamp a sentiment or write a message. From this, the same Designer Series paper, on the B side of the designs, I pulled out 4 colors that coordinate with the Designer Series paper. I have a 3-inch square piece of cardstock. Now I coordinated it with whatever color my background piece that was textured was. Because they are going to be close together, I just thought that they would blend in well. We're going to cover the whole top of this 3-inch square, but you're going to see part of the back side. That's why I wanted the colors to coordinate. That's just the way, you know, I looked at it. There's always other options, and when you try different things that I didn't see for myself, it's like, oh, I could have tried that, but my mind's eye just could not pull it together enough for me to try it, so I let you try it. Oh, and can you see the little bracelet that we made? So this says Stamp It. This was a demo that Jean Hoffman and Pam Valentine did for us. I consider it like it's my first friendship bracelet. So it's really cute. I haven't taken it off yet. I just love it. That was a little extra thing that we had going on at retreat. I've got a 3-inch square. Now all of my squares I coordinated with my card base. You could have chosen something else, but I coordinated them with my card base, and they're Blackberry Bliss. So I've got a 3/4 inch square, two 11/16 inch squares. 11/16 is one mark behind the 3/4 inch line on your trimmer or a ruler. And then I've got 8 1/2-inch squares. So that's what we're working with. The first thing that we are going to do is we're going to bring in our trimmer, and we're going to do a little scoring, and we're going to do a little cutting. Okay, so let's get the scoring out of the way first. So I mentioned on the card base it was 5.5 by 8.5, and I had scored at 4 1/4. I want to make one more score line, and that is going to be at 2 1/8. You can do it from either side. At this point, you can score that. We're just scoring half of that cardstock in half again. So 2 1/8. So now you can see I have 2 score lines. So I'm just going to set that aside for now. And then I'm going to bring in the 6x6 Designer Series paper. Now, I'm going to cut some off at the bottom. I'm going to turn it because I want my directional pattern to be in portrait mode. So I'm going to turn it, and I am going to move it over to 5 3/8 of an inch. So that's between the longest line between 5 1/4 and 5 1/2. And I am going to take off just this bottom. Okay, so that is a scrap piece of Designer Series paper. And now I am going to turn it back into the direction facing me. And I'm going to cut this into 3 2-inch strips. So 1. This is good for use of your landscape Designer Series papers. So now I've got 3 2-inch strips. And we're going to set these aside for right now. And I believe I'm going to put that trimmer away, and we can get busy on working with our quilt block. Okay, so get a pair of snips out. If these pieces you want to, we got to do a little bit of cutting on our squares. I have been cutting my squares because they're small enough with snips. They're a little small to be doing in the trimmer, but if you can still do that, then that is fine too. So your 3/4 inch square, we are going to cut that diagonally from corner to corner in both directions. So I put the point down into the corner of the, I put the corner of the square down into my snips, and I'm just going to eyeball it, and I'm going to cut to the other corner. Okay, so now I have 2 triangles, and we're going to cut them in half again. So now I'm holding my triangle, I'm eyeballing it, and I'm just going to cut up to that corner like this. Now, I want you to set these 4 triangles somewhere where you are not going to get them confused with the other ones that we're going to cut, because they're not that much bigger, but we need them this size. So, put these 4 triangles, put them somewhere where they're not with any of these other pieces. If I can pick mine up here, I'm going to set them on my stand right here in front of, you can't see it, but it's right in front of my stand. Now, your 2 11/16 inch squares, we're just going to cut them once diagonally so that we have a total of 4 triangles. Okay, there's 2. Oops, get that corner there. And there's 4. Okay, so set those aside. Now, on your 1/2 inch squares, you're going to leave 4 of them square. So I'm just going to get 4 of them out of the way right now. They're going to stay square. And then the other 4, we are going to cut diagonally just once. So we're going to have 8 smaller triangles. Okay, so just snip those diagonally in half. And one more. And then we're going to have all of our pieces that we can get started building our quilt block. Okay? So there we go. How's everybody doing so far? Hi, Melanie. How are you? How's everything in Arizona? Hi, Jean. Okay, so let's keep going. And I'm going to bring in that 3-inch square, and I'm going to bring in my 4 1.5 inch squares of the Designer Series paper. Okay, and what we're going to do is we are going to adhere them and build a 4-patch. So just arrange them in an order that you like, and then you're going to adhere them to that base. Now, if you see a pattern happening within your Designer Series paper, see how it looks like there's kind of like brush strokes? I don't want them all going the same way. So I may have some texture that's running horizontally, and I'll have some texture that's running vertically, just to switch it up a little bit. Okay? So once you like the placement of those 4 squares, then I'm going to put I'm just going to put some glue down about halfway. I'm going to do 1/2 at a time. And I'm not going to stick them down really hard because if I need to reposition them, I want to be able to move them around a little bit. Okay. If you see that you can see some of your base on the outside edge due to your cutting, don't worry. Make sure that your seams are meeting in the center of your quilt block. That's important. We're going to create a frame around the outside edge of this block, so if there's any cardstock exposed on the edges, you'll have a chance to cover it up, okay? And now we'll just go ahead and put the bottom squares on. Oh, I wanted this one, the texture going that way. And you want to just butt up those seams. Sometimes you can hear it like snap, and you know that you've got them together. And you want to flip it over and make sure that you don't have designer series paper hanging way outside of your base here. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm happy with this. Get those together a little bit more. And there is our 4-patch. Now, really, this could be, well, no, it's not. I was gonna, yeah, forget it. I'm trying to make something happen here that isn't part of the plan. But the 4-patch is a quilt block, but we're expanding on that. Hi, Susanna. Hi, Betty. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring in those 4 larger triangles. Okay. I don't know why I'm having such a time picking up pieces of paper here. And what we're going to do is around the 4 sides, we're going to take this triangle. We want the longest side across the outside of our block, and you want the point landing right on the seam of your 4-patch. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. So put a little bit of glue on the back side. Put it right out to the edge. And then what I like to do to make sure that I'm to the outside edge is I'll just run my finger back and forth and kind of move it into place. That way it's not hanging way outside. And then I'm just going to keep turning my block. I'm turning it counterclockwise. This way, my piece is always going. My hands, it's a memory thing. So my hand is always going to the same spot. It's muscle memory. And turn it. When you see me flipping my pieces around, it's because you know how when you use your cutting blade, it creates like a little lip from the blade. I always like that to be on the back side. I want a smooth feel of the texture, but I don't always make it happen, but I try. So just rub across there, and then one more. And we're starting to see a pattern taking shape on our quilt block. And I'm just turning it so that it's just easier for me to see where that point's gonna go. Again, this is where if you see any edges to your cardstock, you can move this frame that we're going to build on right out to the edge, and it's going to cover up that balmy blue that I can see right there. So I'm not too worried about that. Again, what was important was that all my seams were matching up here in the middle. Okay, so now that you've got those 4 triangles down, now what we're going to do, Peggy says your sound keeps coming and going. You know, Peggy, in the beginning, it was the picture was really blurry and there was some kind of a signal thing, so that might be coming from my internet, but other things, it could be either of our internets there. So now here we've got the X block going on. That's not the one I was going to show you, but it's another one. So actually we're getting quite a few quilt blocks out of what we started. So now what we're going to do is those 4 squares, 1/2-inch squares, we're going to put these in the 4 corners. Okay, so now put your 4 squares in your 4 corners. Again, I'm not pushing them down really hard because I want some wiggle room. I'm going to put the 2 up there at the top first, and I like to just pinch my corners and make sure that my square is square. Get it out there to that outside edge, but then kind of pinch it into place. See a lot of blue there, so I'm just going to put it out there a little bit more. And then I'm just going to turn it so that my top that I'm working on, that edge is at the top there. And we'll go ahead and put the other 2 in those corners. Like so. Make sure that it's all the way to the outside edge. And make sure that they're staying within your base. Okay. And now what we're going to do with all these small triangles, we're going to fill in the open spaces that's all around the outside edge of our block. What I want you to think of is, see your larger triangle that's here in the center? We want to create an M. That's gonna give you an idea of how you're gonna position those triangles. So to make this an M, we're gonna need a long side on either side. So I'm gonna take a triangle, gonna put some glue on the back. Now, right here, this is a short side, so that tells you that you want a short side to your triangle. And, okay, I had to position it here. So one side of your short triangle is going to fill in that gap. And do you see how the other short side made one side to your M? That helps me know which direction to place my triangle. Okay, so if I'm looking, let's do that one first. So turn it, do some muscle memory exercise here. put that down. Again, I've got a short side going across the top. Oh, that one's a little short. I don't want that triangle there. That'll work. I should have tested that first. I want to make sure that my triangle fits my space. That one's better. So we'll use that. So I'm going to fill in that space. Okay, so I filled in the space across the top, and that other short side made my M. So if I'm going to continue around, I know that I am going to place my triangle with the right angle closest to that triangle. So when I'm holding it, that right triangle is right at the corner of where that one side of my big triangle is. Okay, so we're just gonna keep going around. We're only doing this left side first. Whoops. Just even it out, the spacing there. I'm going to pivot that. Going to hold it with my right angle to the right. Make sure it fills in the spot. It never hurts to have too many triangles on hand if you want to cut more than what the prep sheet said, because sometimes, especially when you're eyeballing your cutting, well, I don't know, it happens to me in my trimmer too if something shifts. But if one triangle doesn't work, then you've got other triangles to use. So now we're going to work on the right side of our block, and we need to fill in this gap here. So that triangle, your right angle should be on the left when you're holding it. And that's going to fit right down in there. And notice how now we've got our M that's formed. That is just something that I use to keep myself straight and know where to put it. And just play with them. I'm going to slide this over just a little bit. There's a small gap in between where everything lines up, but it's not so bad that I would have to use another triangle. Now I'm going to turn it, and I know that my piece is, well, I'm still working in the same spot. I just turned the block so that my hand goes to that same spot. This one here is a little short too. I'm going to try and bring in that one that I hadn't liked where it was. Oh, that's not bad. I can live with this. But if I had more triangles cut, I would probably test another one in there. This is not going to make or break my pattern. Because when I'm looking at it like this, I can still see the points there. And we've got just a couple more. That works pretty good right there. If you want to make sure that your triangles are going to fit that spot, and they were a 1/2 inch, when you're cutting your paper, I don't know how you cut your paper, but when you're lining the paper up on the lines, I go right on top of that line. you know, I make it just a slight chunkier than the 1/2 inch, like a scant chunkier. Then that way I know that I'm probably going to fill in that spot really well. As sewers and quilters, you're familiar with a scant 1/4 inch when you're sewing, which means you want to be just under a 1/4 inch. Well, sometimes we can go a scant larger. I don't like that triangle. I know I've got some more. Oh, I don't. Okay, those are the 3/4 inch ones. I don't want to use those. I'm going to try to make this work. Sometimes flipping your triangle over works. I'm going to make it work. There's always room for adjustments when you're cutting. And with making quilt blocks out of paper, a scant either way when I'm cutting doesn't always hurt. You just got to try, and if you put the piece down and you can see that it should have been a little bigger or smaller, then you just make your adjustments. And sometimes it's not enough that you need to start over. So here is, this is the sawtooth pattern. So you could totally stop right here if you wanted to. That is a really pretty block. So that's the sawtooth. I always think of a saw blade. And so if it's sawtooth, saw blade, I don't know, some quilt patterns will have more than one name for them. So you could stop right there if you wanted to. Hi, Anne. Hi, Amanda. Now, but we're not going to stop right here because the design that I had for you is not this one. We're thinking fall, remember? So maybe you're getting an idea just from the shape. If you were to look just at one block, what quilt block does that remind you of? If you were just looking at the one. It's fall. So now, I'm not going to tell you quite yet, because you know those 4 triangles I told you to put to the side so you don't get them mixed up? Well, you can bring them in now. And I'm going to show you where we're going to put these to really define this 4 patch with what I had in mind. So I'm going to put some glue on the back. Now, working with my triangles, I'm always going to keep my longest side at the top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my horizontal line here, and I'm only going to come up just a little bit. There's no right dimension. So right now it looks like I'm putting a nose on my 4 patch. Okay, so it looks like I've got a nose. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep turning my block and putting that nose on the next seam line. Again, remember your longest side is at the top. And I just want to put it down there. Again, there's a nose. But do you see what was created when we put that second triangle down there? So now, this block, I intended it to be the maple leaf. And by putting these 2 triangles on here, now I've got a stem on my maple leaf. And I'm going to keep turning this and putting the rest of the triangles down so that all 4 maple leaves have a stem. You just want to kind of eyeball and make sure that your stems are the same width. Okay, so now we have a stem to that maple leaf. And when we put that last triangle down, all of our leaves will have a stem. So put it down and then... So those 4 triangles had a great purpose here because it completed the maple leaf pattern in each square. Okay? So, hey Linda, you know, it's just those little things and looking at a quilt block and figuring out, you know, by adding the border on our outside, we weren't cutting our designer series paper to fit. It's actually in, you know, laying in the block. And then our 4 triangles just set off our stems. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to do some quilting. I am going to use the brick embossing folder. And the reason why I chose this embossing folder is, can you see all of this texture right here? Not so much the brick, but the other areas. It's going to give my leaves some dimpling, and they're just going to look like they've fallen off the tree, and they've, you know, they're kind of tattered and you know, just looking more like leaves. So, and I'm going to deboss, which means the Stampin' Up! Logo on the front, if I were to put my block in like this, and I can see it through the side that's got the emblem, that's going to emboss the block. It's going, the texture is going to sit on top. I want the texture to kind of be down in, so I'm going to deboss it, and I'm just going to flip it over, and I'm finding an area that has a lot of that worn look. If I get some of the brick, that's fine. So when I close it, I'm seeing the back side. I'm seeing the back side of my cardstock. And I'm going to step away for just a second and run this through the machine. And when we take it out and flip it over, see how the texture is sitting down into my leaves, and it just gives it that, you know, crinkly on the ground, you know, they're dried out type of look. That's what I see. I don't know if that's what you see, but that's what I see. Okay, so we've got our quilt block. Now let's look at putting our quilt block into a card. It's the 3D, I know it's got brick in it. Exposed brick, maybe, is what it's called. Yeah, and the stems, isn't it fascinating how those triangles just created those stems? Hi, Shirley. Okay, so there's my quilt block. I'm just going to set that out of the way. Let's bring in our card base. So I'm going to fold it in half on that score line that's in the center. I'm just going to match up my corners, hold it down, and give it a crease. Kind of felt it move a little bit, but I don't think it's that bad. I like to crease on both sides to help lay it down. And depending on you, okay, so we're gonna fold this one back onto itself. Okay, so that other score line, we're gonna make a Z fold. So we're folding it back on itself. Now I did something a little different. Normally, I don't know if it's a right-handed thing or what, but normally I would hold this card and I would have the Z fold on my left and open it, right? Well, I did something a little different. I turned it around and I am going to put this together with my Z fold on the right. You can do whatever side you want to, but I'm going to be a little different and put it on the right. So let's open it up. These two panels right here, I'm going to bring in my designer series paper and I'm going to try to put this back together the way it was when it was one sheet. It was like this. And I am going to put this one down here. I'm going to finish off my tree with this one right here and just put that other one to the side. So this is going to have a really tiny border all the way around. Whoops. So I'm going to put some glue on the back side. And I'm just going to have that little tiny border. And then do the other one the same way. Just lining them up so like that. So here's my my tree. On the inside, this is where I'm going to put my textured panel. Like that. Okay, so this one has a little wider border. They are of two different widths, and I did that because I wanted to be different. So now, when you close it, this is what your card looks like. That 2-inch by 4 1/4 piece of basic white for stamping your sentiment and signing your card, that's going to lay right on top. I didn't use any sentiments on this card because I haven't decided if I want them to be fall, if I want this to be a get well, if I want this to be a sympathy card. I haven't decided, so I'm not going to put anything down yet. And when you close your Z fold, it should cover and hide that white spot. Okay? Now, fold it, and just flip it over. I'm going to put that last panel of designer series paper on the back of my card, but I want it on this side. I don't want it on the same side. So I'm just going to flip it over and I'm going to put it here. Again, just to be different. And I'm going to have just that tiny border. One thing I didn't get ready was I didn't make a button for the back of my card, so I'll have to do that. Just make sure your tree's not upside down or whatever scenery you might be using. Okay. So the last thing to do, and see how I'm going to put the quilt block. I'm just going to figure out where do I want, you could put it in the middle. I want to offset mine and not make it so predictable. And I don't want my blues on top of each other. So I think I'll put that blue leaf right down here in the corner to kind of separate it from the background. Slide it over some. And I only want to put glue on the back side of my quilt block. And I might even line this line up with the fold. Now I'm going to put my hand, my fingers, underneath the side of the quilt block that I don't want glue on. So that when I flip my hand over, I just want glue on this side. Okay. And then again, kind of line it up where you would want it. Whether you want it right in the center or you want to just, I'm going to bring mine down a little bit. I don't want it to be so predictable. Whoops. But I want it to be straight. Okay. I think I'm straight. I'm Julie straight, okay? Which means it's going to be wonky. Good chance it's going to be wonky. But there's straight and there's Julie straight. So here I've got my card, so it's going to open like this. And then my quilt block is sitting right in the panel of my tree. I don't know where all the glitter's coming from. And then the only thing left to do is embellish it, which I'm going to bring in the 2023-2025 in color opaque, I think it says opaque, sparkle dots. And I think I'm going to use the copper clay. I think it's a color I haven't used yet. So I'm going to use the copper clay, and I'm going to put a couple on a little diagonal up here, and then one more, because threes are always, you know what, I'm going to put it right in the center of my, so there is our mystery quilt block. We've got the maple leaf 4-patch, and it's a Z-fold. So it's a fun fold and a quilt block. Now I want to show you the other cards I did that got me to this point. Okay, so it's, I know that you can relate to this because you start out thinking, you've got an idea of what you want your card to look like. And then it just like takes on another life of its own and you want to change some things around. So my prototype was this one here, and it's not a Z-fold at all. It is just a regular standard A2. I popped up my quilt block on dimensionals. I embossed that background instead of stamping it. And this is the birch embossing folder. Added my little opaque dots there. And again, it's just your standard A2 card. So that's what it started out to be. But I had seen a layout where they had a plaid background where my embossing folder is, and I thought, oh, I really love that plaid background, but I didn't have any plaid designer series paper that would work. That's when I pulled out the plaid stamp, and again I was just keeping it a simple A2 card, no fancy folds. I put this in the background and layered my designer series paper, and that's when the Z-fold idea came into play. So I just stopped building this card altogether. It'll get finished, but I stopped right there because I'm like, okay, now I want to make it a Z-fold. So we started with this. I went to that, and then I ended, that's the one we made today. But then I ended with my Z-fold. And so yeah, that's, and my dimensions changed because I was using a little, like a 2 1/8, but I took it down to 2 because then I could use up the whole 6x6 designer series paper and only have that little bit left that we cut off on the bottom. So it made my designer series paper go a little longer. Otherwise, I would have been bringing in another piece of the same paper only to use a little bit. And then what if my next card, I needed more of that paper and I don't have any left? So the wheel said go down to 2 inches because it'll get a lot more use and I don't have to get into a second piece of designer series paper. So that is how today's card morphed from this to this. I just thought I would share that with you because it was just fun to see how it was taking on a life of its own. And I know that everybody can relate to that because you'll start making a layout and then you'll find another possibility and you go off in a whole different direction. So that's today's card. I'm going to be making more of these. I love them. And in that autumn, Splendid Autumn designer series paper, there's a couple more tree and bush patterns that will work really good with this, with the maple leaves. Now, don't be afraid to not go with traditional fall colors. You can do these maple leaves in any color that you want. So look at your designer series papers. If you've got a scenery that is done in non-traditional colors, use those colors to determine what your maple leaves are going to look like. This just happened to be more traditional because it's an autumn designer series paper pack. Okay? But don't let autumn and fall colors stop you from creating this card. I would love to see it in other colors when you share your cards over in the group Quilt Cards and More. I will work on a PDF that will be available on the weekend. I'll post it. It'll be in the file tab within the group. Okay. So look for a PDF sometime this weekend. Until then, it's really easy to follow the prep post and follow this replay, and you can recreate this card in the meantime. So I'm going to give away 2 cards for the live, 2 cards for the replay. If you type in Maple Leaf 4-patch, then I'll draw a couple of names for those who are watching right now, and then give some viewers a chance who couldn't be with us live to win a couple of cards over the next day or so. Okay, so Maple Leaf 4-patch is the key word. For those of you who won a teepee card, I found them in prepping for the retreat. Things got chaotic around here, and I actually lost them, but I found them. So I will be getting those out in the mail. Okay, I didn't forget you. I just lost briefly the cards. So thank you so much for catching the live today. I can't wait to see what your quilt block looks like. Remember, there were several different quilt block possibilities before we got to the final. Okay, which is awesome because it just gives you more quilt blocks to put in your library. Everybody have a blessed day. We are going to be heading out this afternoon. Tomorrow is our wedding anniversary. So we're going out to dinner tonight. And I'll be checking in to see what you've been creating. But have a very blessed rest of your day. Okay, so I'll talk to you later.